Okay, 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 okay.
Our grandparents could easily leave the doors unlocked. Our children could play outside unsupervised. And women could walk home alone after dark easily just a few decades ago. Now, we cannot do any of that anymore. Imagine this. You're on public transport and you're sharing a cabin with a group of migrant youth that is playing really loud music. Would you feel comfortable to ask them to tone it down? Would become just as European as we are, and that they would integrate into our societies. Of course, they did not. Our reality in Europe has become a reality of fear because the public space has become an unpredictable. People are facing an institutional and concerted, and children are the primary victim of it. Every single day, videos circulate online of immigrant youth who single out a boy or a girl, force their victim to their knees, and then proceed to them. We should not take it anymore. Europe is our home, and we have the right to be the ethnic majority in our own homelands. It is our right to have the land of our forefathers remain ours and be that of our children. That is not immoral nor unethical. It is the opposite. It is just. That is a hill I am willing to die on, and so should you.
3月の26日と27日、ハンガリーで開催された世界最大級の保守勢力の祭典、CPAC。今回は国際的な大きな反響を呼び、SNS でも広く議論されている欧州の最前線で戦うオランダの保守系活動家、エヴァ・フラールディンガーブロークのスピーチをお届けします。彼女が突きつける、かつての安全な日常の変質と、急激な人口動態の変化がもたらす現実は、移民政策の大きな転換点を迎えている今の日本にとって、決して他人事ではありません。欧州の主要都市で今何が起きているのか。この本質的な社会構造の変容は近未来の日本の姿なのか。我々日本人が今何を直視すべきか。これは特定の思想を助長するものではなく、我々日本人が今何を直視すべきかを問う、一つの記録です。その警告を胸に、ぜひ彼女の言葉に耳を傾けてください。
Ladies and gentlemen, hallo Baratain. I practiced that 5 times backstage. Don't know if it went well. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here. CPAC Hungary is undoubtedly the most important political event of the year, not just for me personally, but for every single patriot everywhere in Europe. This year, however, is even more important. Your elections are around the corner, and they will indeed be decisive, not just for the future of Hungary, but for the future of Europe as a whole. This is the case not just because of what you stand for, but also in whose way you are standing. Because Hungary, under Prime Minister Orbán, is the only country in Europe, and I repeat, the only country that is truly standing in the way of the European Union's efforts to destroy our beautiful continent. So for that, I would like to thank you, the Hungarian people, and I would personally like to thank your Prime Minister, Viktor Orbán, for everything that he's done for us. If it weren't for you, and I genuinely believe this, Ukraine would already be a member state of the European Union. We would be part of a federalized Europe, and the of Europeans with third worlders would be next to complete. Nothing is off limits anymore, as we have seen for the EU-Ukraine bunch. Political blackmail, an oil blockade, trucks full of cash money being driven over the borders. And now, Zelensky threatening your prime minister with physical harm. Despite all of it, Orbán continues to put the interests of the Hungarian people first, despite the great risk that that carries for him personally. We in Europe, indeed, we in the rest of Europe should follow his example. In this time of confusion and geopolitical turmoil, where we are constantly being asked to weigh in on the conflicts and borders of others, it is time that we in Europe stay focused and answer the most important questions. Number one, what does it mean to be European? And number two, what do we have to do to save this continent? Let me start off by saying that being European is not something that comes with a passport. It is not merely a paper reality that can be given out to just anyone by our establishment, to anyone who is in search of free healthcare and free housing. Europe is the result of thousands of years of effort, hardship, and sacrifice. It is an inherently diverse continent characterized by sovereign nation-states. Our people are different yet similar. Just like brothers and sisters, we make fun of each other, we might fight sometimes, but at the end of the day, we love each other because we are bound through history, culture, our faith in Christ, and ethnicity. Yes, also ethnicity. We have to be realistic and admit that we cannot take that out of the equation. We are the native people of Europe, and if we continue to either deny that or say that it is a bad thing like our establishment does, then we will disappear, and so will Europe. Europe is our home, and we have the right to be the ethnic majority in our own homelands. It is our right to have the land of our forefathers remain ours and be that of our children. That is not immoral nor unethical. It is the opposite. It is just. It is just because things do not happen by accident. No matter what the cultural Marxists, the feminists, or the leftists might say, we are not blank pages. We are not mere subjects of social constructs, and neither is Europe. The mere fact that we live in the 21st century has changed absolutely nothing about that truth. The choices that our ancestors made, their decisions and their willingness to die for this continent, for their nations, for their families, and for God, is something that we inherit. That is not for free. That isn't random. We cannot treat our civilization as if it is an open-air museum that we are mere spectators of. We are involved in it, we are connected to it, and we have a moral obligation to protect it and to pass it on. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what heritage is about. We cannot expect that this continent will be preserved if the only people who have actual ties to it, whose ancestors have lived here for thousands of years and who have sacrificed everything for it, are by people who have no ties to it whatsoever, except through maybe possessions or through paper. This is not just theory. Everyone with eyes can perceive this to be true. Because we in Europe no longer live in high-trust societies. Our grandparents could easily leave the doors unlocked. Our children could play outside unsupervised, and women could walk home alone after dark easily just a few decades ago. Now, we cannot do any of that anymore. And I think we all know, either by memory or instinctively, why. Living in a place that is ethnically and culturally homogeneous is what makes it feel recognizable, familiar, and safe, and therefore like home. That might be a politically incorrect thing to say, but it doesn't make it one bit less true. Now, I want you to all picture a scenario that I think many of you have actually experienced in their lives. Imagine this. you're on public transport and you're sharing a cabin with a group of migrant youth that is playing really loud music. Would you feel comfortable to ask them to tone it down? Now, I think anyone who is honest knows that the answer to that question is no. It would be no because we all know that even the most innocent attempt to correct the behavior of these migrant youth could lead to either you in the best case or in the worst case. That is what happens when you are no longer the dominant group in your own society. And no wonder we aren't, because in the last 50 years alone, over 80 million migrants, and these are the conservative estimates, have entered our continent, 30 million of which came in the past 10 years. In 2024, approximately 4.2 million immigrants entered the EU from non-EU countries. That is 11,500 people per day. That's your average European small town, or a football stadium full of people entering this continent every single day. We were told that the people coming here, that those Africans and Arabs would become just as European as we are, and that they would integrate into our societies. Of course, they did not. And now I could mention to you yet another statistic, but when I think about what is happening to our continent, I do not think about numbers. I think about the fate of our people. I think about Lisa, a 17-year-old Dutch girl who got 12 times by a migrant when she was on her way home. I think about Theo, an 18-year-old French boy who got by a migrant over a phone bill dispute. I think about yet another 17-year-old Dutch girl who was by a migrant because she rejected him. And I think about Alex, a 14-year-old Austrian boy who was in the streets by a migrant who then proceeded to pointingly smile, pointing to when he was taken into custody. My honest feelings, ladies and gentlemen, when I hear another news story like this is that I cannot take it anymore. We should not take it anymore. These boys and girls were betrayed by their own governments. They were and then they were in the back once again by their legal systems, who more often than not let their murderers get away with it. Our reality in Europe has become a reality of fear because the public space has become an unpredictable. People are facing an institutional and concerted, and children are the primary victim of it because in their age group, the is most extreme. In Brussels, 88% of all kids under the age of 20 have foreign origins. 8 out of 9 major German cities, in all of those, more than half of the children under 16 have a migration background. And those kids, I can tell you, don't identify as European one bit. So if you have young children in schools here in Europe, then you need to understand that the time of ordinary bullying is over. Something much more sinister has emerged across Europe, and it's something that I would characterize as racial humiliation rituals. Every single day, videos circulate online of immigrant youth who single out a boy or a girl, force their victim to their knees, and then proceed to them. Now, don't think that that is random. The migrant kids that are doing this film themselves doing it, and they have actual terms, slang, that signify the process of what they are doing, which is to threaten and intimidate their victim. They do it with intent. They do it because they are racially aware and they consider themselves the dominant group. And this is happening all the while children, for decades, have been told the schizophrenic mind boggle that on the one hand, they shouldn't see color, but on the other, they should be ashamed just because they are. Everything seems to be designed nowadays to weaken, paralyze, and demoralize Europeans into passiveness and obedience. All across Europe, populations are being in the public space. We are being ridiculed, demonized, and directly and indirectly discouraged to have children. Now, what do you call that? What do you call the deliberate and systemic destruction, in whole or in part, of a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group? Exactly. And now, we are not allowed to say it, but I think that it is time that we acknowledge that if nothing changes, that is exactly where we are heading. So, ladies and gentlemen, where does that leave us? Is Europe lost? Of course, it's easy to fall into that type of thinking, to despair and to conclude that it's over for us. But we cannot allow ourselves to think that way, not even for a second. The future of this continent falls or stands with our willingness to do everything we can to save it. We have to reclaim our sovereignty, and most importantly, not just close the borders, but And now, of course, there are many people who will tell you that that will never happen, that it is just too difficult and cannot be done. But ladies and gentlemen, just because something is hard does not mean it's impossible. Do you think it was easy for the Spanish to drive out the Moors after 800 years of occupation? Do you think Europeans born in the 60s thought that they would be the ones to witness the Iron Curtain fall? Do you think it was easy to construct the most beautiful cities, write the most interesting books, and create the most incredible art the world has ever seen? I don't think so. I don't think so. Yet our ancestors pulled it off. They did it all. So nothing is impossible if we put our minds to it. And now, I cannot stress this enough. The number one issue that every right-wing party in Europe from a country that has fallen prey to should focus on is there is nothing, and I repeat, nothing more important than that. That is a hill I am willing to die on, and so should you. So let me end this, my fellow Europeans, with a message to all of you. First and foremost, to the Britons, rise up. Les Français, levez-vous. Italiani, alzatevi. Die Deutschen, steht auf. Nederlanders, sta op. And you, my Hungarian friends, don't be led astray. Make sure you stay on the right path and vote for Fidesz once again. Thank you very much.
いかがでしたか？エヴァが突きつけたのは単なる異文化への反発ではなく、守るべき自国民の生存権というあまりに重い問いでした。しかし絶望だけではありません。今、ヨーロッパでは大きな地殻変動が起きています。先日の EU 議会において、不法滞在者の迅速な帰還を促す新たな法的手続きの交渉が開始されました。長らくタブー視されてきた自国民の安全と主権の奪還へと、欧州はようやく重い腰を上げ、実効性のある法整備へと舵を切り始めたのです。翻って日本はどうでしょうか？欧州が数十年かけてたどり着いた法による是正という苦渋の決断までの長い道のりを、なぜ私たちは後追いしようとしているのでしょうか？かつては家の鍵をかけずに出かけられたという彼女の言葉に、今の日本を重ねずにはいられません。統計上の数字や強制という美しい言葉の裏で着実に進行している日常の変質。それは私たちが先人から受け継ぎ、次世代に手渡すべき安全という名の無形の遺産が、今まさに足元から崩れ去ろうとしている予兆ではないでしょうか。さらに私たち日本人が直視すべきは、欧州との決定的な構造の違いです。 欧州が不法移民の濁流にさらされている一方で、現在の日本で進んでいるのは、政府主導の合法的な枠組みによる受け入れです。法にのっとっているから問題ないという理屈の陰で、一度根を下ろした流れを押し戻すことは、今の日本の法体系では極めて困難です。合法であるがゆえに、何か問題が起こっても容易に帰っていただくわけにもいかず、気づいた時には社会の土台が書き換えられている。このステルス的な変容こそが、島国である日本が今後直面する真の危機の正体ではないでしょうか。エヴァが指摘した自国で少数派になるという現実は、暴力的な侵略ではなく、平時における静かな制度改正の積み重ねによって完成しようとしています。今の日本の外国人政策をそのまま受け入れることは、未来の子供たちが享受すべき日本という居場所を、私たちの代で永久に手放すことになりはしないでしょうか。皆さんは、ヨーロッパの現状と日本の未来、どのように感じましたか？皆さんの率直なご意見を、ぜひコメント欄にお寄せいただけると幸いです。ご視聴ありがとうございました。